right, welcome to Two Dudes That Game reaction. We just did the podcast for The Last of Us Episode 1. And right after that, HBO dropped the weeks ahead trailer, The Last of Us. So we don't know if this is the trailer for all of Episode 2 or there's Episode 2, 3, 4, 5 combined in here or what happens, but this is the weeks ahead trailer. We're going to do a little bit of a reaction to this right now. Because we want to and we're excited. So we're going to continue to move forward and kind of talk about what we see in this trailer. Go ahead and hit it, James.
Ever kill one?
Clickers.
Is it hard? Knowing they were people once?
I think it's not hard to look past them as people at that point.
You with me. We can just keep our histories to
The
ourselves.
towers, the twins.
You don't tell anyone about your condition.
Looks like we might see how she got bit there, because that was kind of I mentioned possibly Riley there.
Frank, we will never have friends because there are
There's
no
Bill and
friends
Frank.
to be had.
No friends to be had, he says.
Yep.
Just because life stopped for you doesn't mean it has to stop for me.
Wow.
There's no halfway with this. We finish what
This show's about to change dramatically, I think.
I think it's going to there, and I think we're definitely going to get a lot of so one of like the biggest things in here is the utilization of melee weapons. Because you don't want to get rid of your ammo, because you got to remember, like, they're not making anything. We even mentioned like bags are scarce for someone to have, so not necessarily having enough ammo to do anything with. You see Joel there with a stick that you carry around with you. Basically a 2x4 is one of your main weapons that you have, and there's a crowbar, and depending on what level creature you're coming up to is going to determine what you're going to use. So I think we're going to meet looks like we're probably going to go have a flashback, because it looked like Ellie's bite was fresh there.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I think, and we talked about this in our initial reaction to the first trailer and how we thought this show was going to go. And you mentioned, hey, the game's 30, 40 hours, but it's different when you do a TV show. You got to have a lot of filler, because in the game, like in episode 1, it skipped that whole fight scene in where Robert's group came in with the Fireflies. Like, we didn't see any of that. But in the game, you would have spent up to maybe an hour, depending on your skill level,
a couple hours depending on
to get through that, right? And they're skipping right through. So I think flashback scenes could be a great way for TV shows that have great. I think that's great filler for TV shows, because it gives more character development.
Well, I'm fine with flashbacks as long as they don't start to create plot holes. I think sometimes flashbacks can create plot holes or fill plot holes. So as long as they're filling the plot holes of information that we didn't have, and not creating more information that we're a little confused by, then I'm all for it. Because anything dealing with time, whether it's time travel, flashback, flash forward, it gets complicated, man.
Yeah, but you got to think they're gonna want to throw in their own twist that's different from the game, right? And to do that, and maybe some flashback scenes where you're going to watch an episode, and being dedicated to the games as you are, you might think that there's now some plot holes, but they might be filled in later as the show progresses.
Oh, I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying, whenever I see anything that's going to deal with time and moving back and forth between it, some pull it off fantastically, others don't do it that well. So we'll just see how well they can pull off these jumps. I mean, jumping forward in time, HBO's good at that. I mean, just look at House of the Dragon on how big of time jumps we were getting. We had to get a whole new cast because we jumped so far ahead in time.
One thing I want to point out, one thing I do want to mention, Ender, as someone that only played the prologue of this game, I kind of thought that the rest of the game was very much a Joel, Ellie, very remoteness, not a lot going out there. And this trailer shows a lot of people. And that's interesting to me, that it seems like there's going to be a lot of people involved here.
Well, there's a few people involved, but you also have to look at, they're not like a lot of I think what makes a good trailer is interaction. It wouldn't be that great of a trailer of like, here we are riding through the town, here we are walking through the town, but when you're really doing that and you have a, let's say a 5-minute scene of them sneaking through the woods with clickers all around them, well, that may be only a 2-second cut. Like when they're in there may be 40, like a 15-minute segment of them just trying to get through the subway.
Yeah.
Or just try to get through a tunnel, or just trying to get through whatever it may be away from them. That turns into maybe 2 or 3 hours of gameplay. But it is very much an Ellie and Joel story. But I think you need more dialogue with other characters to build the universe. And I think in the beginning we're going to see that, and then I think at the end we're going to or in the beginning we're going to see a lot of people. In the middle we're going to see it just be kind of Ellie and Joel, and at the end we're going to see some more people come back into play as the story goes on. But again, they have liberties to do with whatever they want to do with it. And I'm not saying the game was not filled with some plot holes. It definitely was, but it would be kind of cool to have more characters involved in this show than were in the game, because the game is very much Ellie and Joel trying to survive this journey, and less reliant on other characters because you really can't control them. But there is a huge segment of the game where you're with Frank the whole time.
Yeah.
Frank is with you that whole time, but Frank will only go so far. All the characters Tess will only go so far. Frank will only go so far. Marlena went so far to where she's like, I have to stay here and heal because I got shot and you got a hole blown in your ear.
Yeah.
So we have to stay here. And now that's where my story ends and you continue to pick it on. So I think you're going to see that each character will only make it so far, where Joel and Ellie have to make it the whole way. Everyone else doesn't have to be involved with that.
Do you think that it looks like this next episode we're going to get clickers, right? Do you think the clickers can make or break this show quickly?
Yes.
Are they that important to this show?
The difficulty of why it's so difficult to control, because think about what we saw in the beginning. We saw these clumsy, like really fast but essentially very easy to kill zombie creatures. As long as you had a weapon, he was able to smack one in the face and shoot one in the head, relatively simply.
Yeah, they're not as durable as World War Z.
Yeah. Not saying that it was easy, but I'm saying someone like Joel isn't going to have a problem putting down one or two that pop up around you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got I don't want to kind of paint, but I'm going to paint a scenario in the game. I don't know if they're going to do this in the show, but from the game scenario, you're in a mall area, like a strip mall area, and there is an item that you need in a safe that someone left behind a counter, and there's 25 clickers inside of there. If you make one single sound, they all know where you're at. You have to be completely silent because they use echolocation, and if you're right in front of them, they click, it bounces and comes back. They know it's different. It's organic. Like, the clickers are really hard to get around because of how they hear. Think of like The Quiet Place.
Yeah.
The show The Quiet Place. Like when you have something that has such a greater sense than you do and can hear things that, and then they just attack, and they're getting stronger, and there's levels of these monsters of how strong they are based off how long they've infected their host. And you'll see it, like, it's growing out of the top of their head.
Yeah, as we talk,
like, that's the fungus coming out of their head.
As the first episode, they alluded back in that 1960 scene where he talks about how the fungus didn't have a reason to evolve, but now this fungus is evolving, right?
Yeah, and it's got to continue to survive, and it's going to learn, and it's going to learn how to utilize its host. And it was an ant before, and now it's in human, so it's learning how to use the human host, and you can see how it blooms outside of its head and grows outside of its head for these spores to not only be, if I have all these spores sticking out of my head, I don't necessarily need them coming out of my mouth. It's easier to kill you that way. It's easier to transition you. Like, they're going to learn. And you also have this creature that only has one thought, which is killing, that has this ability that we're not really used to understanding. Now, they could go the opposite way and make them seem way too powerful. Because, you know, in the game, you're able to get past them. You're able to sneak past them. You're able to do these things, like making them on the opposite end of like, oh, there's no way for me to ever kill one of these things. Well, that's not really true.
So is that why you find it to be such an integral part of the show, is that they've got to find that correct balance?
There was just so much of the game utilized around getting around clickers, and how annoyed you were when you got to an area and they were there. It's like, fuck, I got to get past these guys again. Like, I could fight them, but do I really want to utilize the resources? Is sneaking around them better? Because you can't guarantee you're going to be able to kill a clicker because they're stronger. They're all of these different things. So yeah, the design of them are wonderful. So I think they didn't miss on that, just from the little bits of the scene that we of through this scene trailer that we've seen. The design looks wonderful. They look just like the game, if not better. Now let's just see if they portray them in the same way, or if there's something a little bit different, because we already know the spore thing isn't a thing. So like we don't have the spores infecting them. So these guys have to really be on their game to infect people and create this dire world that we're really talking about. And if you think about it, and you go back to like the Red Death or any other plague that you're looking at, the last pandemic, this pandemic we just had, killing the host was kind of the goal.
Yeah.
This is about everyone that's infected. It's not killing. So you got to remember, all of these infected are out there alive. So it's not like you're walking through, like the last ship, like they would all die in those infections. Here, there's cities full of these things, just
True.
waiting for their next meal, and it's keeping them alive as long as possible with the penicillin that we've learned from the scientists in there. So it's not like you're going to be going west and it's going to be this wild frontier all the way. It's going to be full of creatures at all different stages. So anyway, I think that was a good look at The Last of Us, possibly episode 2, but the moving forward trailer that HBO just put out. And if you have any questions for us, please put it in the comments below. I'm Ender. This is James. Thank you for listening. Two Dudes That Game, that review some stuff.